He assured everyone he loves these yaks. Then all of a sudden, this absolute lunatic, it's like serial killer behavior, tweets out this fucking photo. We did a yak meat pop up in Wyoming today, and hundreds of people came out in just 12 hours. It was beautiful to see so many locals shop our USDA inspected grass fed meat. My online store will be launching next month. This dude with no setup, no easing in, straight up ground yak.
Hey, what is going on, guys? So we have a very special topic to cover today. But before we do that, it has come to my attention that many of you are just unaware that I've written an ebook. In one of my last streams, I mentioned it and people were just like, this man wrote a book, what the kind of thing. So just an announcement that I have written one. It's an ebook and it goes over most, if not all, of the main arguments you're going to hear against veganism and all of the debunks for those arguments. It's linked in the pinned comment. And if you can't afford it, just send me an email and I'll send you it for free. One more announcement. My Discord is now going to be officially public. It's also linked below. I'm in need of some mods, so go ahead and please message me on there on Instagram or whatever. If you have any sort of mod experience, please be able to provide evidence for it and, we'll try to go forward from there. But anyway, today we're going to talk about the H3 podcast and Jefree Star. If you've been watching me for a while, I am a big fan of the H3 podcast, and this is not the first time I've criticized them on their positions related to animal rights. But today we're going to be targeting not just the H3 podcast, but also Jefree Star, who is under heat for publicly making it known that he is raising yaks as pets while now raising a separate group of yaks to be mass slaughtered. Now, the current narrative online that has everybody going crazy over what Jefree Star is doing is that he is actually selling and eating the yaks that he's been raising as pets for the last couple years, which for obvious reasons sounds quite psychotic. From what I've seen online, Jefree Star actually disputes these claims and says that the yaks that he's growing and selling for meat are separate from the yaks he's been raising for the last couple of years as pets. So of course it would be more psychologically worrisome for a person like Jefree Star to raise his own pets that he creates these sort of emotional bonds with only to murder them than, for example, raising separate yaks that you don't identify as pets to eventually murder for profit. I'm going to grant the premise that Jefree isn't as psychotic as the internet is claiming and that he isn't killing his pet yaks for meat, but instead separate yaks raised for the purpose of meat, which by the way is what 99% of the people on the internet support with their daily food choices, but instead for domestic cows, pigs, and chickens and other animals in far worse conditions such as factory farms, which we'll get into later when we cover H3 and the other meat eaters online criticizing Jefree for his actions. So back to Jefree. Even if we grant the premise that Jefree isn't raising and killing his own pets for yak meat, but instead a separate group of yaks for yak meat, how is what Jefree is doing still ethical? I mean, Jefree has spent years raising yaks, considered many as pets, has individual names for them, presumably understands their individual differences and personality traits, and most importantly, the joy they experience through living and their will to live. Outside of being under pet ownership, each individual yak would very likely rather not be stabbed in the throat for a yak burger. It seems Jefree is operating under the idea that because these specific yaks aren't his pets, it is therefore justified to murder them for food. Imagine thinking that a yak suffering in a premature murder only becomes problematic when the specific yak in question is in possession of a caretaker, or as people like Jefree like to frame it, an owner. If Jefree Star were to magically disappear tomorrow and therefore his yaks no longer have an owner, would he consider it justified for us to mass murder them for yak meat? Does Jefree think that murdering stray dogs and stray cats for their meat is justified solely because these stray dogs and stray cats do not possess an owner or a caretaker? My point here is that irrespective of a yak being a pet, they individually have their own separate desires, one of the main ones being the desire to not be stabbed in the throat to become a yak burger. To extrinsically tie the moral value of a yak or any other sentient being to the fact of having an owner or being a pet is morally reprehensible and akin to missing the entire point of what it means for animals to have rights. Animals should have the right to be free from suffering and death in and of themselves, not just because they have some sort of caretaker or owner. I have a feeling some people defending Jefree or even Jefree himself might say that no, it isn't not having an owner alone that justifies mass killing yaks. It's also the fact that we've raised these yak for meat. To which I would just ask if it is ethical to mass kill dogs and cats who are not pets, who have been raised for meat. To be consistent, Jefree and other people operating under this logic would have to support these kinds of mass dog and cat killings. You know, something like the Yulin Dog Festival, which so many people in the West seem to actively oppose every year. So that's the moral point I want to make toward Jefree in this video. I'm going to come back to Jefree in a little bit, but for now, let's take a look at some of these clips from the H3 podcast reacting to what Jefree is doing with his yaks. And keep in mind, everybody in this clip actively participates in funding the mass exploitation and killing of farm animals for food, and more specifically, in factory farms, which are significantly worse than what Jeffree Star is doing with yak when it comes to the suffering of the animal.
Yeah, crazy stuff. He
Fucking
now
nuts.
is promoting his yak meat.
What?
Straight up, AB. I know.
For real?
Jerky.
Jerk. I
We've
didn't even know
got
there was
frozen
yak
meat.
jerky.
We've got ground yak meat.
Yeah, so this album that Dan's showing on the screen, these are just some of the beautiful moments that he shared with his yaks,
No.
cuddling with them, and there really are magical creatures.
They're so
Cam was
cute.
saying that his dream is to own a yak. You were saying something like that, wasn't it, Cam?
Well, I would love to trade places with Jeffree, but I would treat them with love and kindness and give them kisses on the forehead and never kill them and sell them as meat. I love them so much, and I'm sad that
That's very sweet, Cam.
You know
a lot
what?
more comes with trade.
You want to
Fuck
yak
with
off,
Jeffree, though.
Cam?
I
Hey,
want to
Cam.
yak off.
Cam, Jeffree said that 1 year ago, so let's check
Yeah,
back
let's
in.
check in. Mark the calendar.
I was watching some TikToks where he was saying this, like taking care of them was his mental health, like was good for his mental health and everything, and
He
God.
said it's helping his mental health.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, it really it's really awesome blowing off steam
Sucks the souls of his yaks.
yeah.
using this fucking what are those called? Like the bolt gun or whatever that they use to
Cattle
Stun
prod?
gun?
Oh,
Like
No
in
Country
No
for Old
Country for Old
Men?
Men.
I don't know how much you guys said about it, but
Well, we pretty much explained the backlash that Jeffree got a year ago when he was getting patents for all this stuff, but we haven't talked about what he did recently, which is right here.
okay, so this is great. Everyone's seen that Jeffree moved to like Wyoming or something, and he's been growing yaks. And so far, like up until now, he's like, these are my best friends. These are my therapy animals. I love my yaks. They're so beautiful. You know, here he is. I mean, beautiful, right? I mean, gorgeous, gentle creatures, beautiful, majestic animals, right? Look at these beautiful animals. Those are some yaks right there, boy. So here he is with his yaks. He loves them. Then all of a sudden, this fucking lunatic. Oh, did he put out a video saying he wouldn't eat his yaks?
So this was a year ago, whenever he was getting backlash the first
Golly,
time.
man.
Yeah.
This man's filter is not doing him any favors. He assured everyone he loves these yaks. Then all of a sudden, this absolute lunatic, it's like serial killer behavior, tweets out this fucking photo. We did a yak meat pop-up in Wyoming today, and hundreds of people came out in just 12 hours. It was beautiful to see so many locals shop our USDA-inspected grass-fed meat. My online store will be launching next month. This dude with no setup, no easing in, straight up ground yak. There's no way he's making money from this either. The point is the cruelty. He wanted to ground these poor, beautiful creatures up and sell them.
Okay, so clearly, as I went over in the beginning of this video, the main kind of criticism here is, oh my God, how could you eat your pets? Now, I just find it mind-blowing that we live in a world where people who actively support arguably even harsher conditions for livestock animals on a daily basis can just sit here on a live show with thousands of people watching and make these criticisms without the majority of the audience being like, wait, don't you guys like support far worse cruelty than what Jeffree is doing? And I say this even if we assume that Jeffree is killing his own pets. Like, yes, at the surface and in reality, somebody eating their own pets, even if they were born and raised on a non-factory farm, is psychotic, and even a special kind of psychotic given the murder victims are his pets. But from the perspective of the animal, in this scenario, what is worse? Being one of Jeffree's pets, or being one of the animals raised in factory farms that suffer their entire lives up to the point of being murdered for the taste pleasure of the H3 podcast crew and all the meat eaters condemning Jeffree for his choices online. From a perspective of animal suffering, there isn't just hypocrisy on the H3 podcast here and everyone else who's, criticizing Jeffree Star who supports factory farms. These people are responsible for even more suffering than Jeffree Star. So that criticism is basically for the entire internet who is condemning Jefree, who aren't vegan and who support factory farms. And I mean, honestly, even local farms are still actively paying for an animal to be commodified, exploited, and murdered against their will when they'd rather, you know, actually live. So back to Jefree, I found a 4-minute kind of ranty style clip in which he addresses some of the people criticizing him online. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to be responding to it live.
People are allowed to change their mind. People are allowed to evolve their idea. It's so weird because I've been keeping to myself for a few years, bitch. You know, I never go on. Remember the old days with Snapchat rants? Oh my God, girl. When the beauty industry was at its height and we'd hop on here every day and But I do want to say one thing that's funny. People are so weird because it's me. It's going to be something always different, right? Bitch, I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not a liar. You don't know me. I'm me, bitch. And
I mean, I think we could establish there's some amount of hypocrisy here if you, you know, claim to care for yak and then also kill them prematurely to make a profit off them. Unless you don't actually care for yak, then maybe it's not hypocrisy. Maybe you just, you know, you're just a piece of shit. But yeah, I think there's a clear case for it, even if we don't assume that you are eating your pets, unless you have some sort of weird, you know, selective morality here where you're like, oh, well, my pet yaks and the yaks I raise for meat are separate and I morally view them differently. You could say that, I guess, but it is a little odd considering that when it comes to the individual nature of these yaks, they all suffer and feel pleasure and would very much likely not like to be you know, stabbed for a yak burger, right? Or be sold as jerky, which I believe is what Jefree is selling.
I bought a ranch. Months later, the idea evolved. I educated myself on where the food I was putting into my...
I bought a ranch. I started raising yak for the purpose of just taking care of them and making them feel good. And then I educated myself and learned that I can actually murder them for profit. Oh my goodness.
Body came from. And bitch, I didn't give a fuck about myself. Hi, I ate McDonald's every day. I was promoting Taco Bell like it was fucking Chanel. Disgusting. I'm so disappointed in myself. I mean, hello, I got sponsored by Taco Bell. I did so many videos with fast food. And I'm like, that's just not me anymore, bitch. I'm a different person. So, no, I'm not a liar. I started raising yaks over a year ago, and I still have 120 pets, and the only yaks that you guys have ever seen on social media are my pets. Any tag with a name is my pet. People are so... I think if you just don't like me in general, you're just hopping on this thing today. Maybe it's Memorial Day weekend, you're bored, but I'm like, girl, stop making up in your heads. People are literally making up their own narratives. You're slaughtering Swiss Chocolate and Buster. No, they're actually right outside the window grazing on the grass, and I can't wait.
It says a lot about the audience that they're like, oh, you're murdering Swiss Chocolate and whatever the fuck he said the other name was. It's like, dude, who cares if it's the pets that you're murdering? How about like we just value these animals, you know, intrinsically almost? Like you don't just tie their morality to the fact that you're their caretaker or owner. You know what I mean? Like it seems very obvious, like very basic to observe that like regardless of whether or not an animal has a caretaker or owner, they can suffer, they can feel pain, and they would rather not be stabbed prematurely for a yak burger. Like I'm just repeating myself at this point, but yeah, it does say something about how the audience is only concerned because of the possibility that he's actually eating his pet. Who cares if they're his pets or not? Like the animals can give less of a fuck about that. They'd rather just not be murdered, right?
For their semen to impregnate a lot of girls and have some amazing babies. Maybe because I've never like...
I think he's saying here that he can't wait so they can impregnate other yaks and create more, maybe to kill off those offspring for meat. Who knows, really? It's hard to say.
World that I've ever sold a yak before, what I do all day. It may be a little bit of a shocker to some people, but baby, relax, take a Xanax, take a hit, go get some fresh air. Anything to not concern yourself with what I'm doing, because the world's already so fucked up, right?
Well, people are going to concern yourself with what you're doing if what you're doing entails the suffering and death of others, right? Like you don't just look at animal abusers online and be like, hey man, why are we giving this animal abuser shit? Like we should just let them be. Like, why am I so concerned with them? Well, you know, we're concerned with them because they're causing suffering, right? And promoting something that causes suffering. That's kind of like the idea when like we get on people's business, you know, when they're effectively negatively affecting someone. Well, that was a weird sentence. Just negatively affecting someone, right?
I'm not trying to be dramatic, you guys, but our world's fucked right now, right? Like, it's getting worse every day. America's trying to take away women's rights, and y'all are worried about me feeding the community. Like, I literally, if you...
Taking away women's rights is obviously a problem, but also taking away the rights of yak and murdering them is also a problem. You can fight for two things at once, right? It's not really impossible to do. And again, I'm coming from the perspective of like, I don't care if you're killing your pets or they're not your pets. Like the problem is that you're killing them. That should be why people are attacking him fundamentally, not just, oh, because they're his pets.
Months ago, got to give 1,000 pounds of meat away. Got to donate to people that were in need of food, like in this community of Casper. It was beautiful. Never promoted it, didn't talk about it, didn't feel the need to. I do.
Yeah, donating murder victims to people in need, very, very noble, you know? I also sometimes like to raise dogs and kill them so I can help people in need. Definitely a very ethical thing to do, to help people by killing others. Very helpful.
Stuff like that all the time. I don't need to hop on here, but oh, look what I donated. You know, it's like, no, I just do me behind the scenes, but I get it. Jefree sells a vegan makeup brand for a living. Y'all know I eat meat every day. When have I ever claimed to be vegan? No, I'm on year 8 of Jefree Star Cosmetics, and I created it so it can be inclusive and everyone could wear it. The old days in the beauty industry of testing makeup on rabbits and bunnies and torturing them is...
Maybe he should extend this inclusivity to the ethics of the food he promotes, because he's saying, you know, he wants to be inclusive toward vegans with his makeup brand. How about being inclusive toward the yak so they're not murdered, right? They're also kind of they are a marginalized group that would rather not be oppressed. So, you know, if we're trying to be inclusive here, how about we include the wants of yak and not murder them? Be sick.
Horrifying. Like, hello, duh. The beauty industry had to evolve past that. And I was one of the people to help push vegan in the industry. And the beauty industry needed it. The old days of crushed beetles and makeup and whale fat and all this crazy stuff, you guys, like that was so disturbing. And there's a whole different industry than farming. But
it's all disturbing, but it's okay to just slit the throats of yak, right?
I get it. I'm from LA. I had no idea about farming and hunting and the culture of all of it. Like, hi, neighbor hunted a deer and he has food in his freezer for his family for a year. That's so cool. When you grow up in a big city, you don't know anything about that stuff.
Yeah, my neighbor murdered an obese human being and now has food in their fridge for a year for their entire family. Like, how ethical, man.
So it's been really beautiful living out here in Wyoming. I'm so proud of today. So shout out to everyone that came. Thank you. Truly, it's awesome. We can't wait to do it again. Staryaks.com will launch with the online store very soon. So if you're local in Casper or surrounding areas, you can order and pick up local, or we will be shipping to all of America.
So they're going to be shipping the dismembered body parts of murdered yaks very soon throughout America. Amazing. Yeah, so if it's not clear, guys, it doesn't fucking matter if he's killing his pets or if he's killing separate yak grown for the purpose of meat. The individual yak would rather not be stabbed. That's probably the 100th time I've said that in this video. But anyway. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you support my work and want to support me on Patreon, the link is in my description below, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dude,
fuck off. I don't want anything to do with you. Don't ever speak to me again. You're a fucking piece of shit.
even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who is your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude,